be interesting if he looked like none of the adults.
Well, he did look like one of the adults, so I'm going to say that he was part of the plan. Recording from all that. Oy, oy, oy. Oy vey.
Are you sure it's unmuted?
No, not at this point. I'm tired. I do want to make sure, before we get too far in the show here, that this thing actually picked up the right device, and we're talking over yeah, it did. The blue Yeti. Where are you going?
She'll be right back, folks.
Why would she leave me by myself in a show?
Because she has a lot of trust in you.
That's a bad idea. I'm not sure. I think she...
I didn't want to sneeze.
Did you really just go grab a porn magazine and come back? I mean,
I brought it for you.
Well, that's fine.
Wow.
Kleenex.
So anyway, topic tonight
is...
The history of the Kendrick house.
History of the Kendrick house. That's a fascinating location. It's got a deep, steeped history in the area. Been around for a very long time. We get some great evidence there. And they do a lot of Civil War reenactments, and this weekend they're having Farm Girl Days, which I'm hoping to go pick up a farm girl for the weekend. And then, why are you rolling your eyes at me, son?
Because I can. I'm your son. I'm allowed to do these things.
Maybe you'll find you a nice cowboy while we're there.
No need.
Anyway,
Too much trouble.
We're going to be there from, we'll say noon.
Yeah, that sounds...
Because that would mean I'm going to be up early, probably anyway. But we'll say noon.
Noon. Then the
Till
festival...
about midnight or 1.
Yeah, festival goes to like 5, and then we'll set up for 2 or...
Probably eat supper.
Yes.
Because I won't do well that long without some sort of nourishment.
No. Me either, and
Tristan, well, he's just flat out cranky.
And
Yeah, and
bitten too.
As long as I have my tea in the morning, I will be fine. Up until lunchtime.
It's tea.
It's tea.
I'm sorry, I like tea.
I like tea.
There's nothing wrong with that. I like tea too.
I like tea.
No,
I just,
you like iced tea.
I do like iced tea. I drink a lot of
you
iced tea.
drink hot tea?
Yeah.
We digress.
We are... I don't even know... God, there we go with those big boy words again. Why don't we just use, like, little boy words? Like, we're backwards or completely off topic.
Okay. We're off topic.
We probably are off topic.
Should we get our guest on the line?
I guess.
Maybe if we have to.
We are going to bring... on the line. Hopefully.
Hello?
Kelly?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Is it loud?
No,
Is it soft?
not real. Turn it up.
Turning it up.
That's better.
Okay. Is it fuzzy?
No, not too.
Does it sound like a swarm of bees?
Sound like a what?
A swarm of bees.
No.
Good.
That's good, because Tristan said that it sounded like a swarm of bees earlier.
Oh, no.
I am a good person.
It really doesn't have anything to do with it, to be real honest.
Oh, we'll find out. Whatever.
Oh.
So you are live on the air, by the way, so don't be throwing any cuss words out there.
Oh, okay.
Or tell any stories that you don't want repeated on the internet.
I did post your
okay.
I did post your personal phone number in the chat,
Great.
in the chat room. I wanted to make sure that people called you if they needed anything.
Okay.
I don't think she bought that one.
That hurts me, Kelly. It hurts me.
I'm sorry.
You're going to have to try harder to deceive her.
So Kelly is actually a member of the team. She's also the big queen bee of the member of the board for Kendrick House. And she's going to tell us everything that we ever wanted to know about that location, even about Farm Girl Days tomorrow, because we didn't discuss it yet at all.
Oh. Okay. Am I supposed to start now?
Well, we could have Lisa ask you questions. She actually knows the history. I don't pay a lot of attention.
Oh, okay.
When you guys are talking. So
He says that, but then he knows the history. First of all, anyone that wants to go to Farm Girl Fest tomorrow, Kelly, can you give them directions to the house?
Yes, if you've been to Carthage before, you just go north on Garrison, and you'll go over 3 bridges around the corner of B Highway, and I guess it's the North Garrison. And there'll be signs there with the Farm Girl Fest, and you'll see it because it's pretty well marked. So,
okay,
should be easy to find.
And what time does the shindig get going?
the shindig.
The shindig starts at 10 and ends at 6 o'clock, and they're going to have all kinds of. Last year we hosted the same kind of thing, a Farm Girl Fest in the fall. Mm-hmm. And we went on for 2 days, but they had 35 vendors. But this time they have 70 vendors. So good. There's probably anything and everything out there. There's food and music and crafts and everything you can think of. So people can come out. Except for maybe John.
Well, no, he says he's going to be there by noon. So.
Oh.
So we will be entertained by John. Maybe he'll wear his tutu.
Yeah, there we go.
He even said earlier he was hoping that he might be able to find a farm girl.
Oh, wow. So well, there ought to be plenty of them there.
Okay, Tristan.
Why do they call it Farm Girl Days?
Why did they?
I don't know. They didn't tell me. But I think that it's one family that puts it on, and I think they live on a farm and do farm stuff, so I think that's why they named it that. I'm not for sure.
So it sounds like people can come out and have some entertainment, buy some neat homemade crafts and eat and all kinds of things then.
Yeah, they have pony rides too.
That's perfect for Tristan.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. I think, and they're going to have a pie eating contest at 1.
Oh, well, there you go. There's your lunch.
Wow. Thanks, Lisa. Call me big.
No, I'm just saying there'll be food there.
Mm-hmm.
There will be.
He looks thrilled, by the way.
Oh, no.
That is a total lie.
And
proceeds benefit Kendrick House, don't they?
Well, they're going to donate whatever they make for the pie eating contest to us, and they're helping us raise money. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wanted to touch on is that Kendrick House, like a lot of places, historic sites, is always in a continual struggle with expenses. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
And Kendrick House doesn't receive public funding, do they?
No, we get all of our money from donations or local grants if we can get them, but some of the grants are really hard to get. You have to jump through hoops to get them. But most of our money comes from donations, and then the haunted history tours give us money, and just we need to find a rich person to support us, I think. But that could be John.
Yeah.
He's rich.
He must be. I think he's got it buried in the backyard.
If he does, I haven't found it yet.
Well, if people want to, if they'd like to contribute and donate for preservation and upkeep at Kendrick House, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I guess probably either if they come out tomorrow, we're going to have a donation can there in the house, and then if they not, I guess by mail would probably be the best way.
Okay, and where should they mail donations to?
It's 603 East 3rd Street in Carthage, Missouri. And that's 64836.
Awesome. And anyone that might be interested in contributing or donating or helping out in any way can also contact John and I through Paranormal Science Lab at info@paranormalsciencelab.com, and we can relay that information to Kelly as well.
Okay. Well, we have a Facebook page for Kendrick House, too, if you want to try to contact us there, too.
Message you. But I think that a lot of people just don't realize how easy it is for our history to be lost.
No, I don't think they do. There's a lot of people in Carthage that we have people come out and they've never been to Kendrick House or even know what it is, and they've lived in Carthage all of their lives, which is always kind of amazing to me. I grew up 10 miles north of Carthage, and we went by it a lot when we were coming to town, but we always knew the history of it. I had never been in it until I got involved with the Victorian Carthage Board, but so it's something that it has a real good history for Civil War, and the family, they were really good at preserving the history. And you can find history about it online or at libraries or places like that, but this family in particular kept a lot of their own records, and they even interviewed people that had been to the house back when their ancestors were there in the late 1800s, and they've kept all that information, and we've been lucky enough to go through all that and be able to see what they recorded. So that you're not going to find at a library. So
yeah, so basically you are the caretakers of a lot of the early history of the Carthage area.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
How about on that note? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the history of Kendrick House, what people, if they come out there, what they're going to experience, what happened there?
Well, the house was built in the late 1840s, and it served as a sick house for many people during the time. It was a stop along the way to Fort Scott. The family were blacksmiths and gunsmiths, so a lot of people stopped in there on their way back and forth. And then during the Civil War, both the North and the South used the house as a headquarters and hospital. So the family stayed in the house till late in the war, so they saw a lot of things happen there, especially with the border wars that were going on. But it's just got a lot of history, and if you come to the house, you can see some of the things. There's a trap door where they hid underneath the house, and it's just full of history.
Well, and
the one family kept the house, or the family had the house until 1980s, so it's never really changed hands as far as the family went. So.
And that's and that's really unique. You don't see that very often.
No, you don't.
But Kendrick House actually played a pretty central role during the Battle of Carthage.
Yeah.
The Battle of Carthage was the first large-scale land battle of the Civil War. Most people don't realize that after the fall of Fort Sumter, this was the first time that you had a large amount of men fighting. Over 6,000 men, and part of that battle and the aftermath happened right on the grounds.
Mm-hmm. One of the kids of J.P.D. Kendrick had written an account of going out in search of his parents in the field and running into some Confederate soldiers on July 5th of 1861. So that's pretty interesting to think that their house was right there in history.
Well, and the house was then commandeered and used as a field hospital.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing people don't realize that if they go out there, I mean, it is a living museum, but it's not a roped off museum where you go a lot of times and you just look at rooms behind plexiglass or a velvet rope.
No, it's definitely not that.
You can go in, you can sit down, you can really, you can touch things, you're more a part of it. But I think probably one of the most fascinating things in the house, and there's a lot of things there that are original to the family, is the original dining table.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It probably, the lore is it was used as a surgery table when they did surgeries during the war. So it's got a lot of possible. I don't know. A lot of people could have been on it and had things happen to them they didn't really couldn't control.
Right, and that's one thing that I think we were really Paranormal Science Lab was really pleased to be involved in, is that we all decided to look at it. How could we see if we could validate that family story, and in fact, under UV light, you can see the blood stains.
Yeah, you can. You can sure see where the blood has run down the table for sure. And it does look like on the ends where they may have tipped it up for the blood to run down in buckets, but it's a lot thicker on the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. And splatters
or on the edges.
Towards the head. But I think those are moments that, if people do come out to haunted history tours and ghost hunts, it's things like that. I think interest in the paranormal is one thing, but you can really kind of bring a little bit of that history alive when you turn out those lights and you see the blood evidence. I think it makes it more real. Wouldn't you say so, Tristan?
It does. And then the fact that you get to hear about what happened in the area during that time, because it was a really scary period of time when you didn't know who might knock on your door, and it kind of gives you a little insight into why people in this area are the way they are. They're kind of standoffish.
Cliquish.
Some people are anyway, but.
Well, I think it really, I think it really set the tone for sort of the psychology of the area ever since, that you didn't trust too many people, wary of strangers, that kind of thing, because even your neighbors or other family members could be coming after you. That happened routinely.
Yeah, it even happened at the house, so.
Yeah. Why don't you tell a couple of the examples of things that happened at the house that the family went through?
Well, one of the things that happened, and this is dramatic, but it's bad enough, but there were lots of guerrillas going through the area, and someone came through one time when they were at home at night and set the porch on fire, thinking they could burn the house down, and they came out of their hiding after the people left and hitched a team to the porch and pulled it away from the house so it wouldn't burn the house down. So that was one of the things that happened. That was getting pretty close to home. And then their son was a Confederate soldier. He was in the Confederate Army, and he had heard in town, this is late in the war, that they were going to come through, the Union was looking for all the Confederate soldiers, and so he didn't come home that day. And sure enough, the Union soldiers came to the house looking for him. His father was elderly and couldn't hear very well, and they were asking for his son, and he didn't understand them, so they put a gun to his head to try to get him to tell him where he was at. And they were going to kill him, but Mrs. Kendrick put her thumb on the hammer of the gun and stopped it from firing. So that's how close they were to being one of those numbers of the people who were killed during the war.
Well, in fact, it's pretty amazing the house survived, because so few places did. This Southwest Missouri was called the Burnt District, and because both sides, just scorched everything, and there were really only about 3 houses left standing in the Carthage area. So
Yeah, that's right.
So the fact that it's
They didn't want anything left for anyone else to be able to use, so they just destroyed it.
exactly, and ended up a lot of civilians, starving and leaving for that reason. I just don't. I don't think that most people conceive of how hard it was during the war here.
No, I don't think they can either, and I never really comprehended it until we got into it a lot more in a lot further detail about what did happen here. You think about it, but you don't think how bad it really was. And even after the war, how bad it was for someone who was a Southern sympathizer.
Right. I mean, because for about 10 years afterwards, they couldn't vote, and they couldn't hold a lot of different kinds of jobs even.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to make a living.
It was, and the Kendricks were very lucky to be able to keep their property and to be able to make enough money to keep it all going. But I think what they did was valuable enough to both sides, and they kind of tried to stay as neutral as possible, but still they had the Sun and the Confederate Army, so it was pretty hard.
Well, yeah, and when we hear tales of the Civil War, it's usually back east, and people just don't really think about all those things happening here. And they had cabin on the land that was burned, and people tortured and lynched on the land. What do you think? I mean, what's your feeling, Kelly, on how all of that affected what happens in the house now?
I think it had an effect on it because it's something that, well, for one thing, the family has always preserved that history. And, for example, the family left the porch off of the house to remember what happened. So I think it was important to the family to remember what happened to make them the way they were, and they were grateful for what they had. So I think all that turmoil, though, is part of what the paranormal has going on now, because it's just the things that went on in the past were some of them were so traumatic that you just can't get past it.
What experiences have you had yourself?
I've never been scared out there. I have seen things get put in different places, or you might hear people talking. It sounds like maybe they're upstairs talking, two people are having a conversation, but you can't hear what they're saying. But you don't ever feel. I've never felt threatened, but I've seen a shadow figure one time. But still, it didn't scare me or anything like that. And then being at the investigations, we've heard some odd noises and things that you can't really explain, and seen some pictures that you guys took that really have no explanation for. So, but all in all, I don't think it's anything that's evil or anything like that. I think everything out there is friendly. It's just that's part of this family that was there, and this is their house.
Let's talk about some of the evidence there. I mean, we've had some, and by the way, I want to go backwards a minute. I don't have any money. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I did hear you. And
I guess we'll put the shovels back in the car.
If there's any money buried in the backyard, it was my grandfather's, and he was a penny pincher, so it's entirely possible that he did hide money in the backyard. But let's talk about some of the evidence that we've caught there. There is some very strong evidence that there's several children there, several adults, direct responses to questions and names being said over evidence and such. One of my favorite characters there is a little girl by the name of Carol. Can you tell us a little bit more about her?
Well, Carol was Carol Sujani, and she lived across the road in a house with her parents and her sister. And she got sick with polio, and they brought her there to take care of her and to get her away from her sister, and she died within just like 38 hours or something like that. But she was about 2.5 and 3 maybe. But one of the times that Lisa's group, your group too, investigated, they came and showed us evidence the first time, and they played some EVPs for us, and Roberta Williams was with me, and they said that they had been asking if someone would say their name, tell them who was there, and they audibly heard a little girl squeal. They thought it sounded like, and then they asked the name, and so they had a controversy over whether it said Carol or Carrot, and one person thought the name was Carrot, and Roberta and I just looked at each other because Carol's sister had called her Carrot Soup as a nickname, but they didn't know that because we didn't tell them. We didn't think of it until then, so that was kind of an eerie thing.
I remember.
But it kind of validates it.
Yeah, I remember seeing, as we were telling you that, and you and Roberta just looked at each other, your eyes got big, and Jeremy and I were looking like, did we say something wrong?
Yeah.
And because we had no idea.
That was pretty creepy for sure. To us, anyway.
The thing with Carrot, though, is that she's never introduced herself to me as Carol. Mm-hmm. It's always
really?
Carrot. So I think it's funny.
Yeah, that is.
She's a very loving child. From evidence, we've had her crawling up in people's laps and
hugging
legs and playing with hair, and I mean some very strong evidence that points to that, which I find fascinating. Really, she's probably, in my mind, one of the stronger entities there.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Is kind of odd, I think,
but just a strong life force, I guess.
Yeah.
And almost, I think you can almost say almost irrepressible. Just that little child energy, and we've. There are times that we've had EVPs where you get the little her voice saying "mommy," and then you'll hear a woman's voice saying "Carol" or "Carrot," and there's been times that we get voice of an older woman, kind of ushering her along. Now, come along now, things like that. And,
yeah.
And we kind of...
It's just like they are still there doing what they did before.
Right. But we kind of think we know who that is, don't we, Kelly?
I think.
She almost called you Carrot, by the way.
Yes, Kelly's new nickname is Carrot, so... But
mine?
Yes.
That's what happens when you hang around us.
So.
Could be worse. You got to hear Lisa's, but I won't say it on the air.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Well, often the older woman, she really comes through as sounding like an older African American woman, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would.
And there's actually someone that fits that bill who would have been pretty elderly but still alive at the time that Carol would have been there. And that would be Rose.
Right.
Why don't you tell everyone Rose's story? It's pretty compelling.
Well, we had always heard a story about the Kendricks having a slave woman and her children. And during the Civil War, the Union had been there at some point, and then the Confederates came through, and they thought that Rose's mother was harboring Union soldiers. So they took her out and they hung her in the orchard that was north of the house, and then they left Rose for dead. But the family nursed Rose back to health, and then she lived with them until she was in her 90s. And We weren't ever sure if that was true, but when we were looking through all the things that the family kept, we happened to run across some newspaper articles that were in a book. There was one man in town who had written a bunch of these articles, and someone had put them all in a book form. And it talked about Rose, who lived at the Kendrick house with her husband George, and it told about how the family had really loved Rose, and they didn't know where George came from, but she had married him, and they had lived there all of their lives. And as they got older, they let them unlock all the doors in the morning and lock all the doors in the evening. And there were a lot of outbuildings and stuff, so there were a lot of locks and doors to handle. So that was their job. So apparently, the story was true.
Well, and
We
interesting.
just didn't have proof before.
And interesting in the story, it says that their keys still hang in the mansion, and that's kind of interesting because there are keys there, aren't there?
There are. We never knew what they were for, but they're just several old skeleton keys, and they're really, really old. So probably first key to the house.
And the interesting thing there is that one thing that we found is that a lot of times there will be a lot of energy around those keys.
Oh man.
You can move them to different parts of the house, and you'll have EMF spikes around them, static fields, things like that. And there's been people who've investigated there and actually, you would almost say channeled what appears to be Rose while holding them and talking about the old days and so forth, and even using terms and names that were consistent with the belief structure of the slaves at the time, and including hoodoo and voodoo, which was very common throughout the slave culture throughout America, and but indicating that it was used to protect them and the family, and it's just amazing. I think John had his own experience with the keys.
Yeah, thank you for shoveling that off when you ran out of things to say.
Well, you do it to me all the time.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, I picked up the keys one time, and it was pretty intense. I mean, it almost threw me into a channeling scenario. And yeah, I don't know that I'll pick up... I heard that too. I don't know if I'll pick up those keys anytime soon. We just had some interesting shuffling or something going on in here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my mother.
Well, hi.
I was like, there's something going on in there. But yeah, those keys will actually throw you. I mean, they can throw you into a pretty wild session there. But
I've never heard that before. That's interesting.
Yeah, she wasn't there when that was a private. Oh, you hadn't heard John's experience before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, that's because I try to hide things from you. Not really.
Well, yeah, like buried money.
Buried money. Apparently, we would like to know if your father... I'm talking to my mother. We'd like to know if your father buried money in the backyard of the house.
Why?
I don't know. They said I was burying money, and I said it'd be more likely that my grandfather
Who
buried
said
it.
that you're burying money?
Kelly.
You just had to be there.
Kelly's on the phone.
Kelly.
Kelly Harris. She's Kelly Still Harris. She's not a Harris before. She's still Harris. That's pretty funny. Wow.
Well, we had to go a long way for that joke.
She's on the board of directors for Kendrick House. That's what we're talking about this evening.
So,
You're late.
yeah. So
Sorry.
Anyway, John left the room, so we were giving him a hard time. So
I was listening to the show on my phone because I wanted to make sure that we were set up fine and everybody could hear us, and so I heard them.
Oh no.
Uh-huh.
And Kelly, we have to spend all day with him tomorrow, so.
Yeah, that's true. It might be a long day.
Hey, don't be, hey.
Bring the spray bottle. We can spray him like a cat.
That's a good idea. Might be hot tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
Is it supposed to be warmer?
Yeah.
Does the air work?
What?
Does the air work at the house?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, good.
Or at least it did. I haven't turned it on lately.
Probably hasn't been used yet this year.
Yeah, stay out of that candy. We don't know whose that is.
It's Pages. But anyway, back on topic.
Yes, back on topic.
So, what other kind of... I know that there's one particular entity in the slave house by the name of George. Has also come across, we think, as Silas. What can you tell us about George?
I don't know. Is that who Aaron saw?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen him too.
You've seen him too?
Yeah.
Well, she was little. I don't know. She was probably 4, and she was out there. We had a dinner or something out there, and she came in and told me that there was somebody in the slave house, and I was like, what? And she said it was a black man, and he had curly hair. He had a white shirt with big sleeves, and it had a rip in the sleeve. But I said, well, did he see you? And she said, no, he wasn't looking at me. I was like, okay. But she said he was just kind of staring off, and he was looking out the window.
See,
but
that's where I saw
she
him.
swore he was there.
As I was walking up to the house, I saw him staring out the window.
And you know, it's kind of interesting too, because we've caught some things out there, but I think the most interesting thing is that at times we will catch harmonica music, like some.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And
there was another group that stayed. They spent a lot of time in that slave house, and they said they heard music out there too, and it was harmonica music. They thought.
Mm-hmm.
It might be interesting to take a harmonica. I don't have one. To
Me
take
either.
a harmonica out there and see if it triggers any
That's
activity.
true. That's true. Now Benton had one. I'll have to see if he stood.
Surely you get one at Walmart for. You think Walmart still carries them?
Maybe.
They might.
Might be able to get one at Walmart for next to nothing.
Yeah.
I might try to go tomorrow and look
Okay.
before I come out.
I'll check to see if he still has his.
I have no idea how to play a harmonica. I can make weird noises, but I can't play a tune.
Hey, well maybe George will show you.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
you take
Yes, it
lessons.
would.
I would love to learn to play harmonica from a ghostly guy.
That would be awesome.
I think so.
As long
Yeah.
as we have it on video and audio.
Well, as long as we have it on video.
Yeah.
No, I've always found that fascinating, and I think another thing that happens out there that always has an impression on me, and I know you've experienced it too, Kelly, is the footsteps and the back door, the sound of the back door.
Yeah. Aaron and I went out one night to take out the trash, and I didn't want to scare her, but it was a nighttime, and we got the trash, and while we were in there, in the room that's just off the kitchen, there was a real heavy boot step, it sounded like, and a real deep sigh. It was just, like they were tired coming in for the night, and I didn't know if she heard it, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to scare her. But when we got in the car, she goes, well, I wonder who that was. And I said, I have no idea. But we heard it.
Yeah, and I've heard it too, where you hear it sounds like an old time screen door, you know, with the creak and the screech as it opens and closes, and it always occurs at that doorway at the back of the foyer. And interesting is now there's an addition on the back, and there's no door there, but that's where the original back door was.
Yeah, it was.
And so, you know, I've heard that several times, and and it just, to me, that made so much sense, because that's where they would have come in. And a couple of years ago, there was a archaeological dig there, and remember, they found the trash pit from the blacksmith shop.
Yeah, they did.
And
it had a lot of slag in it.
Yeah, and it was just behind the house, and so they definitely would have come in the back door from the shop. So
it makes sense for sure.
And we've also caught the EVP, the sounds of someone working an anvil before.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
right. I forgot about that.
So, in all the time that you've been there for a lot of investigations, Kelly, what's the most fascinating thing that you've seen or heard?
Well, I guess whenever you play the EVPs back, it's the fascinating thing to me is it always seems like the same voices over and over. It's not like new people all the time. It's people that seem to continually be there. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I find very interesting, and they sound like they sound the same each time. So definitely there's somebody's staying there. And it's their place to be.
And I really like the fact that Kendrick is one place that we get a lot of interactive EVPs. That it doesn't appear that it's just residual, something replaying, but where they're really reacting to what we're doing. One of my favorites, Kelly, is when you were actually telling Rose's story one night.
Yeah.
And in another room, actually, we had audio running, and you'd never used Rose's name, and you're telling her story, and you pause during it, and there's an EVP of a woman that says, "Oh, Rose," in response.
Yeah, that's good.
And there is a bit of a prankster, fun-loving young man there too, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
And when I say prankster,
he likes girls.
He likes girls. And when I say prankster, nothing negative, but he likes to joke around.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think that he's given us one of the most unique EVPs I've ever had anywhere. And when he said he must kiss her.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
No. But sometimes he gets a little impatient with us when we're not paying attention to him too. And say, Yeah,
he's a fun one to ignore.
Yeah, because he likes to, if you ignore, then you actually get EVPs that will tell you, light the light, or you can't see me, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I have to say that I think Kendrick House is one of those places that, people have these places that they dream to go to that are haunted. Eastern State and Waverly Hills, Valeska, things like that. And Kendrick House really ranks up with those kind of places for the kind of things that happen and the evidence that comes out of there.
I think some of the evidence coming out of places like Kendrick House are better than those places. I mean,
yeah,
you're talking about some really overly investigated locations that, and I'm not 100% sure that the evidence that I've seen I would consider to be paranormal in some cases.
Well, true.
But Kendrick has never failed to give us evidence. I mean, and even on nights that it seems like it's extremely slow, we'll have tons and tons of EVPs from that location.
Oh, yeah. We've never come out of there with nothing.
Right. And my first time there was, I had 15 minutes of straight pacing. I mean, it was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I thought it was Lisa. Lisa had walked out to do a radio show, and you know, you could hear her walk in, and then and I thought she came in and got equipment and then went upstairs, but if you listen, it's too close to her going upstairs from coming in. It's not her.
Yeah.
But there's 15 straight minutes of pacing, and then some grumbling afterward that we never really could make out. But it was kind of I mean, that place has always been fascinating to me because there's just so much that goes on. Well,
and we tend to call them the residents there, but they get to know you, and you can have your name audibly called at times. I've had my name audibly called.
I've had Carrot tell me that to tell Tristan. What did she say that? I don't remember. We were there for a meeting of some sort, and she told me to tell Tristan something, and I don't remember what it was now. It's been a while ago.
Me either.
But he was sitting next to me, and I felt her walk up, and she said, "Tell Tristan." I think she said, "Tell Tristan I said hi." Is what I think is what it was. And
she must think you're cute.
Well, she's not very old.
Yeah, she's 2.5.
Oh my.
Yeah.
But she kind of gravitates. She tends to gravitate to men.
It does seem that way.
Yeah, I mean there's times that she comes across for women too, but a lot of times that she does seem to gravitate to the men and crawl up on the laps, or you know, it's their attention that she's seeking. So, and she's not shy. So,
no.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Sure.
No.
Ignore him.
2 no's and a yes.
Speak up.
Why do you think, and y'all know more about this than I do, why do you think that it is that some places do interact, the entities there interact, and others don't?
Oh, I think part of it is how much energy is there. You know, things that transpired there. There so many things happened at Kendrick House. So many between the war and epidemics. It was also where the midwives would come to birth, and they'd bring the women to birth children in the area. So just so many things happened, and family deaths and so forth.
I think some of it is too that they just don't want to be bothered. So they're not going to
In other
respond.
places?
Yeah.
Maybe the family was used to having all kinds of people, different people there all the time, so they interact with people more because they're used to doing that.
That may be
Because
true
people
too.
came there for reasons, you know, to be nursed back to health or just as they were passing through. So,
And that may be true too. But I think in some locations, I think that they just don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we walk into places and, you know, just not a whole lot going on, or we don't get a lot of responses, or whatever. I mean, it's very rare that we walk in somewhere with nothing.
Well, and sometimes it's just a matter that, you know, they may let you know that they're there, but they're just not interested or trying to communicate. You know, I mean, it's like they're comfortable in whatever existence they have, and they're just not too concerned about messages or whatever. And then other places, I think there's some places that just seem to almost be a way station. You know, it's almost like the train depot for, you know, that it attracts spirit, and Kendrick does seem to be that way. And there are times that you'll have new ones there and come through, and then maybe you never get them again.
Yeah, we've had
a few
transient spirits in Kendrick. One of them I specifically remember, Teal Gray was with us. Was one named Chris, and he was just kind of walking through. I've never come across this guy before, and really haven't since.
Yeah.
It happens, you know. Transient spirits walk through all the time, and it's, you know, like Lisa's saying, it could be part of that is that they're they were just passing through before.
And well, and the geography there, I think, is an issue because there's so much limestone. In fact, the quarry is just, you can almost throw a rock from there and hit it, and so you have so much limestone.
Well, all of that ground in there is limestone too,
right. So
because
you have so much crystal.
that Mr. Kendrick built Kendricktown across the road there for the people who were the ones that worked down at Carthage Marble. So,
Well,
and there's also the other direction. There's also a big limestone quarry too. It's just it's been closed.
Well, and you know, and then there's the river right there, and which is a big conductor of energy and so forth. So I think it's a combination of all those things at that location. It's almost like the geography is a amplifier.
I absolutely think so. Yeah.
And
that's where the lizard people live, right?
No, that's down the road.
Oh, that was
Okay.
close.
And so I think I think those kind of factors almost make the place almost a beacon for them. Kelly, believe it or not, we have chatted for almost an hour, and we're getting to the end. But is there anything that you'd like to add, or what you'd like people to know about Kendrick House?
Well, I'd just like people to know that it's a jewel that's hidden from everybody, and if you have time, come out and see it, and come and support us at these things like Farm Girl Fest and a haunted history tour and things like that. You'll enjoy it, and you'll learn a lot. We'd love to see you there.
I think that it's important for people to know that, and you guys touched on it earlier, and I just want to touch on it again. These places don't get public funding. The things like Farm Girl Fest and the haunted history tours and things like that is what brings money into these historical locations and help keeps them open.
Right.
Without that money, they can't stay afloat, and they have to be sold off or whatever. And we don't want that kind of thing to happen. There's some great history there, and I think that we can, even just a little bit, once in a while, just come to a tour or, come out and support Farm Fest or whatever, and can help us keep it.
Yeah, every little bit helps. I mean, it really makes a big difference, whether you think it does or not, because if everyone does a little bit, then it adds up.
That's right. I mean, if 1 million people were to send you $1, what would that do for you?
We'd have $1 million.
Exactly.
and that's the thing is so much could happen with that. And we have so many things that need taken care of. We have a porch that needs fixed. We have a roof that probably needs replaced, and so many things. It's just like your house at home. There's upkeep all the time. But this one's 160 years old.
That's right.
And so everyone out there, you're invited out tomorrow. It's going to be a great day with the Farm Girl Fest, and then stay for the ghost hunt and help support your history so that it doesn't fade away. And we appreciate it.
Yeah, that's right. We appreciate it very much.
Yes, we do. Very much. And we are at the top of our show, so I want to thank everybody for listening in. I got some good responses about it sounding better, or getting the audio and stuff worked out. And we want to thank Kelly Still Harris.
Thanks.
And we will see you tomorrow.
Okay. I'll see you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Night.
Bye.